Oh, hey, Alice. Fancy seeing you here. You walked in at a good time. I was just sitting down with Jon Wisecarver. He's a local musician here in Nashville. We were just having a chit chat. Good to see you. John, how are you doing today?
Great. Yeah, it's been a good day.
It's been a windy day too. I when
Storms recently have been crazy.
I thought one was going to touch down today because I was driving from Nashville to Murfreesboro and I saw wind circling around me in like this
Oh,
huge
wow.
circle. And I was like, oh man, there's gonna be a tornado. Luckily not today. So
Yeah, that's good.
we've had enough tornadoes here for sure.
Yeah. The one at in 2020, was that 2020?
Oh God.
Yeah, yeah.
Was
Th- that gave us a few years worth of tornadoes.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yep. Yeah, just this is a very like natural disaster prone area, unfortunately.
Yep. Yep. People need to know that when they're moving here, they're trying to get away from the earthquakes in California and think it's going to be better here. Got news for you.
Newsflash. Yeah, it's Bill Gates' HARP weather machine. He's targeting us. He's trying to take us out.
Yeah. He doesn't like country music. He's trying to get rid of it.
That's what it is. Um, yeah, so I okay, let's get right into it.
Okay.
Just hard segue. Um, what are your thoughts on free will? What do you I guess I guess I guess it's a hard thing. It's one of those things like when someone says God, it's like everyone has a different idea about what that means. So I guess do you believe in free will, and also what does that mean to you?
My first thought of that is yes. Um, but I almost feel like it's within the confines of um, of a calling in a way, like of what you're supposed to do. Um, it's like, you know, there are a few words that I feel, especially in today's age, excuse me, most people really don't understand. Two of the biggest ones are free and the word all. The word all, I think, is one of the most dangerous words in our current vocabulary. But as far as free, nothing is free. And I think even inside free will, it's within certain constraints. And that's a beautiful thing because too often we hear things like the word free, whatever that's connected to, and want it to be like absolute. But that's a hard thing to do. Like I heard somebody describe it once about like almost freedom within the law. Like we have laws and we have things that we have to deal with, and it keeps us safe. Like there are lines painted on the road, and it's the law to stay within those lines, and it keeps us safe, and that's a good thing to obey. And so we have freedom to drive safely within those boundaries. And the way I heard this guy describe it was he had a little girl, like 2 or 3 years old, and he built a fence around his yard so she could go out and play. And it's like, in one side, you can look at that as she was being held captive within the yard and she couldn't leave, or she had the freedom to play in that place safely and do whatever she wanted within that and live a happy life.
Mm.
And so I think the same thing correlates in my mind to free will. Like, I have no doubt that I was born to be a musician of some sorts. And so knowing that and being okay that I'm not going to be a doctor, I'm not going to be a lawyer, even though I like to argue. I'm not, whatever it may be, I'm not going to be that. I'm constrained to being a musician, I'm going to find freedom in that and do it how I best feel serves my life.
Yeah. Okay, I got you. So it's kind of, I guess it's just kind of self-evident that it exists then, because
Say that again.
so it's kind of like it's self-evident that it exists also, because like we're making decisions and like but you're also the other part of that would be like you said, you're pulled and compelled to be a musician, like that. But like, but so like, are you compelled the same way to like pick up a cup of coffee, or is that you feel like you have more authority over that?
Um, hmm. That's an interesting thought because, I mean, like a cup of coffee is something that I don't particularly need.
Mm-hmm.
I say that, but morning comes and I need it. But like, whereas music, I would feel a lack of life without music. Whereas with coffee, I'd get over it, Um, but it's something that's more ingrained in who I am, the music side, and not as much some of the menial things.
Oh, hey, Neif's here. This
Hey,
is
what's
my
up?
producer, Neif. Oh, you guys know each other. That's right. You guys have met.
Hey, how you doing?
Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
We were just talking about free will, Neif. We were talking to
Oh,
Alice about free will.
yes.
Um, yeah, coffee was a funny example too, because it's a habit forming thing. So like, I mean, so is sugar, right? So it's like, I mean, that thing is compelling you to pick that up. So maybe that's not the best example.
Well, see, I will say, like when you said that, my first thought was how I've treated coffee in the past, and I guess you can sort of put this around free will because I wanted to, um, anything I do in life, I want to enjoy as much as possible. And there was that era in life where I had the Starbucks gold card, so every fifth drink was free or something, and it was always loaded with flavors and sugar and nonsense. But I was getting ready to do a couple trips with a few different musicians, a few different artists. I was going to Africa for like 2 weeks, and I would have flown home and I used to live in New England. I was going to be there for a week and then fly to Romania for a couple weeks. So like, I'm going to be in these two places that aren't as quite developed as what I'm used to. Have no idea what my options for coffee are going to be. I assumed in Romania, because I've been to Europe a number of times before, that it could have been like an instant coffee, which is fine. So I had this thought that like I still want to enjoy my coffee, and I know they're not going to have the Italian cream flavors, whatever. So I started like conditioning myself in a way to drink black coffee. I just start like getting rid of sugar, the cream, and just drinking black coffee, and then even just trying to find bad cups of coffee. So that no matter what, when I get there, no matter what coffee they serve me, I'm still going to enjoy it. I'm not going to have to like choke it down. And so maybe that applies in a small way to free will of like, I had the choice to change my approach to something and change my personal tastes so that way I can still live this enjoyable experience no matter what.
Yeah, one could look at that like a discipline.
Yeah, and I chose.
You're training
able to
yourself
discipline myself.
To lower your taste or your, I mean, it's a method of survival, even though it's applied to something that might not necessarily be survival. But then again, caffeine is pretty addictive.
And therein lies a really good point of survival. I think any living thing, the natural instinct is survival, always. I mean, even plants, that's why a plant can grow out of a hill, but then it's going to start going upwards because that's how they get the most sunlight. It's a survival thing. Same thing with humans. The basic instincts at the surface or at the very basic level is survival. And then so I think within free will and survival, they really do coincide in a way of I get to make the choices because I have this natural instinct to survive.
Yeah.
That sounds real similar to tundra law.
Yeah.
I'm not familiar with that.
It's a concept I'm constantly referring to.
Okay, I'll have to look that
quite a
up.
bit of it.
It's an ongoing joke. Why don't you tell them about tundra law?
It's kind of a philosophical joke where I basically talk about, the idea behind a lot of people relate it to anarchism, in the sense, but a lot of people don't understand the lack of that being something when they bring it up, So the explanation I bring is the default of humanity. And it's like you're saying, well, what the few things, if you're out on the tundra, what do you need? You need to build a fire, you need to make shelter, and you need to eat. So when you look at all the other socially constructed things that we deal with and put ourselves through, tundra law throws it all out the window. None of it matters.
Right.
Even down to the he said, she said of the world. It doesn't matter if you're arguing with one another about philosophy. If you both need to build a fire or you're going to freeze to death, well, philosophy be damned.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
But that's
that's
just
good.
one of
I
those
like that.
things.
It's a good name.
Right.
It's like
the tundra law.
So
Yeah.
that's interesting though, because like in our society, I think art is a necessity, but in that landscape you're describing, is art a luxury? Is art and philosophy a luxury in that sense? Because I mean, you don't have time to paint, you don't have time to bang sticks on rocks, you got to go hunt. And then I guess once you got a couple of deer back in the cave, and you got you a big fire, then you can draw on the walls. And
Well,
so I mean,
one thing is you have to teach your young how to do it, and you can't bring the 6-year-old out on the hunt. So you have to describe it to them. So you start drawing pictures of, and that's what we see in the cave walls, is pictures of hunts.
so art has always been necessary to our survival.
Yeah, it's information. It's the passing of information.
Yeah, it's been like a communication.
Mm.
It's almost like art is
Yeah,
history books within itself.
that's probably the best way to put it, because people talk about how art is this and that and expression, and but really, on tundra law, I guess you'd say it's really about communicating to beyond language. You communicate to a child, the child doesn't understand language.
And
Like
on
you do.
language, we didn't develop that because it was fun. We
Right.
developed that because we needed it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's this belief system around free will. I guess it's kind of like an opposed view called determinism. And I'm not sure at what like level you're familiar with that, but basically the idea would be like you could imagine like God just threw the dice, and like everything is the result of random combinations. So um basically what that would be saying is like every action that you conceive of, picking Coca-Cola over Pepsi, or picking Pepsi over Coca-Cola, was based on a decision, like based on some stimulus you received prior on in life, or some kind of like you saw a commercial that day, or um someone told you one was better, or something led you to that decision.
It's either some negative or positive stimulus. Something
Yeah.
told you, yes, I like this because it's good, or no, I don't like that because it's bad.
And so people will use this kind of worldview to expand their empathy. And like so basically you can think of like dictators like Stalin or like Genghis Khan and say that, well, that person was a product of their environment. And even if not everyone in their environment turned out that way, that person was the product of some fucked up biology and like had a brain issue or just had a heart issue, a moral heart issue, and they were born that way because of the cosmic variables put in place. So I don't know. I don't know if that's necessarily the truth, but that's an interesting counterpoint, and just wondering what you think about it.
Yeah, that got deep. Um, I'm trying to think where even to go with that. um, well, yeah, you know, ultimately, we are, um, we're always going to be a product of our surroundings. You know, in a very macro level, like whoever you're hanging out with on a certain day is going to influence how you're acting, or maybe even shift your belief system that day. But ultimately, you know, like there's a reason why more people in the Atlanta area drink Coke over Pepsi. You know, it's just the home, and they're so saturated with it. And it is what it is. And you know, you're talking about like dictators and what their thought is, and whether it's messed up or not. I was watching something with today's current events of us. When I say us, I mean our administration, saying that Russia actually using the word invasion of Ukraine. They were talking about the history of the whole region, and Russia actually originated in what is now Ukraine. And you have certain people like Putin who feel that that's part of the historic roots of his country and his people and his culture, and doesn't like that it's been separated out to create a different culture outside of the Russian culture that he loves. So it's a fascinating viewpoint, you know, but such as anything in life, how you handle a situation can very much change how you're perceived by the world.
Yes, very much so. Uh, that's something I learned as a clumsy teenager, is that, oh, actions have consequences. And it's
Yeah,
like, yeah, like if you act like a fool, then people will perceive you that way. And it's like that pretty much sums up every politician I can think of. Just
yep,
period. Just in maybe, okay, like since Kennedy. In fact,
definitely.
I was just talking to a friend of mine about we were I can't remember how it got brought up, but I said I think Kennedy was the last uh president that actually had like any kind of power. Because after they killed him, I think there's that um that bit that the comedian does. I can't remember, why am I blanking on his name? Bill Hicks. Bill Hicks
Bill,
has,
I had
yeah,
to unmute it.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Bill Hicks has a bit all about as soon as you're elected president, you get brought into a room, and they bring a projector screen down that shows you a video shot from the grassy knoll, basically. And there's a guy with a cigar, like a general, basically asking you if you got any questions. you know.
Wow.
And it's just that whole idea, and it's a funny comedy bit when you really think about it. It's kind of like,
Yeah.
you
Bill
know,
was
I mean,
thinking about it.
how
He was like,
how effective would that really be? I mean, you know, it's like, hey, you just got paid the most, perceivably the most powerful person in the world. Let us show you
and I mean,
exactly how much control you have.
and ironically, he's dead. I'm
Right.
not starting that a conspiracy up, but
You know, I mean, I just have to show you that. I mean, it'd be enough for me to question
Yeah.
whether or not I got
Yeah.
in the right situation.
Keep
yeah.
yourself in line.
You know,
So what do
it
y'all want me to do?
Neef's probably tired of hearing me talk about it at this point, but it actually it breaks my heart when I see stuff like when I just think about like, okay, they killed Malcolm X while he was giving a speech and like 5 people shot him. Uh just in public in broad daylight. They killed Kennedy next to his wife during a parade. And now Epstein, right? So it's like not only not only can they do whatever the fuck they want, but they're rubbing it in our
Mhm.
face, and they have been for a long time, just like,
Yeah,
yeah,
those Clintons are crazy, aren't they?
It's
yeah.
not so much rubbing it in our face. Now it seems to be rubbing in our face with our current federant, but it wasn't so much rubbing in our faces, just these slight reminders. Because there's always these
Yeah.
questions around it. Well, if, you know, it could be
Yeah.
this. But it's like, well, you know, I mean, we could have done that, but we don't do that kind of stuff. But, you know, we could.
I think
You
it's
know.
one of those things. A good friend of mine, or I was like friends with the whole family. His dad was a county sheriff in Ohio, where I'm from, and I mean, a very intelligent guy, very good at his job. Um, and he was convinced that the tax law is written in such a way that no matter what, if the government wanted to come get you, they can find something you messed up on your taxes because it's so complex and get you for that. Like no matter what, there's always going to be something
I'm
that
pretty
you can get
certain.
arrested for.
I'm
And I
pretty
think it's the
certain when it
same thing
comes
like
to,
you're saying,
yeah.
like
I think
there's
that's more
just
so
enough
with
information to
businesses.
make you think.
Yeah.
But they're not exactly saying it. They're very good with their words. Very good with their words.
Well, I think that more so applies to businesses, you know.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things, I brought this up in a discussion the other night. I think one of the things that turned it for the populace was conspiracy charge. When when they began to start allowing a charge for the conspiracy of a crime and not the actual commission of a crime. And that's kind of where they, you know, pulled the whole thing. It's like, well, we got control of the businesses through taxes and regulations. The populace, we can't do exactly certain things on them because they dance around the law and we can't do these draconian laws. But then they figure out how to say, well, if you conspired to commit a crime, that's a crime. One of the hardest things to get out of, too.
Yeah. Yeah. It's fascinating.
Yep. This yeah, the queen of this land has weird rules, Alice. Like you have to paint the flowers red, paint the roses red, and you have to, you know, walk exactly a specific way and do this weird little dance. And like you can do other things, but just not when the cards are looking.
And that's the thing is the dance might change.
Oh,
And
damn.
it's up to
This always
you.
changes.
Your ignorance of the change is no excuse.
Yep.
That's part of the game.
You should
Exactly.
be. Alice knows she should be paying attention to the queen because the queen sets the example. And if
Well,
you have been paying attention to the queen, you notice all these changes that occurred and the roses would have been planted red.
well, and you remember what the dormouse said.
Right.
So
Speaking of.
yeah. Yeah, you gotta feed your head, Alice. Gotta just keep your eyes open. Look around. Don't look at your phone all day. You know, you can find good things in there too, but you know, I think the other thing too, not only is misinformation like the biggest problem today, but like the other thing is like they control us with fear. It's like everything is panic, 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 panic. The biggest thing, Alice, is just breathe and enjoy life, because they can't, that's, you don't want, like, you can't let them take that from you. At least just chill and, like, the world is ending, but let's all have a good time and party and, like, good vibes, which John, you were talking about, like, if it wasn't, you could do without coffee, but like if it wasn't like without music, what would you do? And I think that there's a lot of truth to that, where it's like, real artists, they don't do it because it's fun necessarily. Real art isn't always fun. It comes from somewhere that is you're there's a reason not everyone can do it, on a technical level and on an emotional level, you know. So
Yeah, it's not the easiest thing in the world.
thank you for what you're doing, man, because it it saves lives. So
Yeah,
it's the most important thing we can be doing is communicating with each other about and things that hurt, things that are uncomfortable too,
right.
the
And music
taboo.
does that.
Yep. And it's all those notes.
And I've always been a firm believer that, next to the power of the universe or God or whatever somebody would want to say, that music is by far the most powerful force on earth. I mean, hell, the CIA uses it to drive people insane, but I mean, the way music has been able to shift cultures over time. And
I've often spoke about how sonic, just raw tone, is so much more advanced and on such a heavier power level than verbal expression. I don't have to
yeah,
know. I don't have to know a language that somebody else speaks. I don't have to know a word of that language.
right,
We don't even have to know the same type of music,
right.
but we both know what's in rhythm, and we both know what sounds like hell out of key.
Mm-hmm.
It's a universal language, but it's also a language of the universe, because you know it intuitively. It's like you just said,
Right.
it don't sound good, and that's
It's
like that you know that. How weird is that?
beyond the
We don't know
language.
shit. We don't know for sure that a meteorite's not gonna kill us all tomorrow, but what sounds bad. It's like
Yeah, yeah,
at least on your level, and that's subjective as well, but like there'll be that agreed upon in the middle where everyone's like, oh, and everyone is unanimously like, oh no, that sounds like shit.
yes, yes, absolutely. I always thought about that in the sense of like, um, when you see just the the universe we live in is art within itself, and I think that's why it's so important and so ingrained in us as humans, because there's not one person in the world, being honest with themselves and people around them, that can look at a beautiful sunset or sunrise and not think it's one of the most beautiful things they've ever seen. They're not going to be disgusted by it and turned away, and it's like, how is that? Like, it's a universal thing that we can all agree with and be in awe of.
Yeah.
Some people like the ocean more than the mountains or whatever, but like, there's like universal truths within art.
Yeah, universal truths. Like kittens are adorable unless you're a complete psychopath. Like
And Bob Ross paints the best happy little trees unless you're just completely a fool.
a buffoon.
Bob is the man.
You know,
Yeah. Okay. Another complete hard segue to a completely different direction. What? Okay. Two-part question. Do you believe in aliens from other planets? Second part question, do you believe in aliens from other realms or dimensions?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd say yes in general to both. I'll get down these rabbit trails of uh, just tech stuff and space and time. And luckily at my job, there's a lot of busy work, and so I'm sitting on YouTube or Netflix a lot. It sounds terrible, but it is what it is. But and so I'll just get down these like YouTube rabbit trails, and the James Webb Telescope was just launched, and everything was successful, and so there's gonna be a lot of stuff that we're gonna see that we haven't seen before. But there are too many unanswered things, unanswered questions, and the universe is just far too vast for us to be the only living being that has conscious thought. It's hard for me to believe that we would be the only ones. Like, the universe is huge, or it's completely tiny and we're in a simulation. That's a different topic. But like, yeah, I mean, there's got to be. There's too much evidence of it even here on Earth.
Have you ever run across any of the discussions about shift time theory?
I want to say yes, but
basically it's time traveling forward. If you travel close enough to the speed of light,
okay, yep,
away from the Earth, your time is gonna be different from the Earth's time.
Right.
Like Interstellar.
Right. Well, then you also have, with that idea and with knowing, the idea of speed and distance, there's also a discussion about, with extraterrestrial beings, aliens on other planets, that if there was, or if there is, for us to find, they would have to have found us by means and travel that is completely another level from ours, because even if we were to find a planet with life on it, we're seeing it millions of years in the future or in the past. And even if we could calculate that far ahead and determine that there's still life on that planet, there's no way for us to calculate a trajectory to get there, because it and we and the universe expanding, and that universe and our universe were flying rapidly in random directions.
Right.
We would never be able to travel to that specific planet. We technically couldn't travel to any other planet outside our solar system in our standard method.
Right.
Which really kind of puts a whole nother scientific mind fuck on the,
And yeah, and another thing I heard recently too, kind of along those lines, as far as time travel, because people talk about time travel if you had a machine, if it was say a portal that was, I heard, a renowned physicists talk about it, that from what they understand, we can never go in the past. We can only go as far back as the time of the invention, because it would just basically create a wormhole, in a sense, just a path from one to another. But the one variable that people don't talk about is, like you said, we're flying through the universe. And so if you were to travel in time from here to, say, an hour from now, planet Earth is in a completely different part of the universe. It's something like 70,000 miles an hour, I think is what they calculate that it's traveling. So it's 70,000 miles away if you traveled an hour into the future, fascinating thing in that.
That's a really good concept and a really good point in that too, because, people tend to lay the variables of the Earth with the variables of the universe together, and it doesn't work that way.
Right.
It's
like
time
and space.
Right.
It's a combination of the two.
It's going to move in time and stay in the same space, because if you do that, it's like you're saying, you're off the Earth.
Yeah.
You're not even in our universe, in our solar system anymore.
Right. All right. It makes for a
Well,
real bad day.
that would make sense if the Earth wasn't flat and sitting on the back of turtles. So when the
Which it
universe
is.
which it is.
This is the planet Earth. Flat.
I'm
What you
gonna
have to
clip.
actually do is you have to ask the turtle to rewind time.
Oh, okay. Yeah, turtles have time powers. I
But he
forgot.
speaks a lost language, so nobody's
Yes.
able to do that.
Ask the
Oh
great
yeah,
turtle.
we the lost turtle tongue. We've forgotten. If only we knew. We need to find the magical turtle flute that summons the turtles, and then they'll just fix everything.
All we need.
Hmm So, John, do you have any ghost stories or anything you can't really explain with logic?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I do.
Any you want to share?
Yep. So, I want to say it was probably 12 or something. I was at my good friend Sean's house, and he lived with his mom and stepdad, and 3 little kids came with his stepdad. And so, we're playing with him, whatever, and we were playing hide and seek one night. So he lived in technically a 1-story house, but it had like a finished attic. And that was the kids' space. It was like 2 bedrooms, and the 3 kids shared between the 2 bedrooms. And it was like a big open area. And since it was a 1-story house, like you had the slant of the roof. And a lot of times with that, you'll have like a storage space. So you have like the half doors, because where the roof line comes down and it creates the wall, you have this half door and you have some storage behind there. And so I'm trying to see if there's a way I can explain this. I use an old set list. So this is half the house. Right here would be that little half storage door. Here is the bathroom. And then down here would be the stairs going down. So like, and then there was like a partition or like a wall going around. So
by half storage door, do you mean like one of those? It's like a short door that just kind of goes into the in between a finished part of the house, and sometimes if it's a basement, into the stone.
Well, it was like this was the attic.
Okay, so
it was the roof line coming down.
Okay, all right.
And then it would be a wall, so it was just a short door. Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So, so we're playing hide and seek with his younger brother Scotty, and we hide. It was like the bathroom was just a stand-up shower, so we hide in there. Anyway, Scotty thought it would be funny to turn the main light out. It was a 1 light switch, so it's just like pitch black dark up there. And then so I reached out, turned on the bathroom light, gave me light, and then I ran around to where the stairs go down. That's where the light switch was. And I turn on, excuse me, I'm getting dry. Turn on the main light switch. Anyway, Scotty, that little bastard, hid in that little storage space behind the short door and like kicked that door open. You know how like if you kick a door and it kind of like shakes as it's going, And so, I mean, we heard the impact of the kick, the door flies open, slams against the wall, and it's just like shaking because it was a pretty hard hit. But then Scotty doesn't come out. And it freaked us out. So natural instinct, we took off downstairs to find Sean's mom, stepdad, and all 3 kids downstairs. So a human did not kick that door open. I mean, and it wasn't a gust of wind. It was an impact that made the door fly open.
So in other words, you were thinking that he had got in there and done that.
Exactly.
Right when it
logical
happened, that's the first thing. But of course, you're like, oh shit, y'all run down, and he's down there with everybody.
He's down there.
And you said you observed this with another kid.
Yeah. And so his stepdad is pissed that we're trying to scare the kids because we made up that story. And he dragged us upstairs and throws us in that little storage space. One of the scariest moments of my life. Nothing else happened. But I mean, something kicked that door open with pretty great force. And it wasn't a human.
Mm.
Yeah. You know, I mean, there have been other things. It's like, because you hear ghost stories that somebody heard something or saw something. And it's not that I don't believe that, but like your brain can be funny. You can see things or you can hear things. But like this was actual physical manifestation of something.
And you observed it with someone else, saw the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty scary. Yeah. Never forget that one.
No, like you said, it like our friend Jesse Stillwagon calls it unverified personal gnosis. Like sometimes you can see things when you're by yourself. And like but when you have someone else to verify that and like something physical like what you're describing like on the door, like that's pretty hard evidence of something.
Yep.
I don't know what it is, but
yeah, that was wild.
Yeah, I always find that stuff fascinating because I've had many experiences with spirits, but I've never seen any poltergeist activity. I've never seen objects levitate or anything shake like that, and I would like to. I would like to see that. I think that'd be cool. I think it'd be cool the first time.
It'll change your life.
Yeah. So on to my next question, and I like to preface this by saying, like, no one has the answer to this. Like, people have different ideas and beliefs about it, but not a single on the person on the planet knows. But what do you think happens after we die?
You know, that's another thing that I've been contemplating in a different way lately, just seeing more of, you know, again, how big the universe is. And it makes me want to believe that there's something more. And then it's hard to imagine, you know, again, it's one of those things that's hard for us to imagine because we only know what we know. But like it's hard for me to think that my consciousness is going to stop. So I don't know. I feel like your consciousness, like you never cease to exist. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, me either. Neif, do you know?
It's a strange thing. You hear different stories of people on their deathbeds and things you know, they seem shocked right before they go. So they're seeing something.
I've heard that DMT is released in the brain at birth and at the moments of death. So maybe they're tripping balls.
Maybe Joe Rogan would know. Have you ever died doing DMT?
You know, on the same subject.
Pull up that guy that died and came like 6 times.
On that same subject, I had this experience on DMT once where this thing communicated to me, and it showed it to me. It didn't it didn't just tell me. It showed me that we were all the same entity. Like you and I are literally the same person, and we're all God. It's just one guy, and basically we invented all of this so that we could pretend we're not alone, and we could all share in this reality, because being the only thing that exists is profoundly lonely and depressing.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, and I'm not sold on that. That was a drug trip, you know. But
yeah.
But it was hard to argue with at the time. Like there wasn't it wasn't like he was telling me this. It was like
it's like it was being revealed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
And that was hard. It was really hard to take that because I didn't want that to be true. Obviously, we're not supposed to know that. We came here to forget that. So
Yeah.
yeah, it took me a while to get over that.
No, that's the thing. I think there are certain things in life, death certainly being one of them, that we just don't know. And we can drive ourselves mad trying to figure it out. Or we can just live in the moment.
That's the answer, man. It
I
doesn't
mean,
matter.
and we want to, like, it's fascinating. We want to think about that. Death it's because it's just as much a part of life as life actually is. We want to know about it. But it's like, are we alone? What happens when we die? We don't know that, but we do know life, and let's do something with that. Let's enjoy that.
The question isn't what happens after we die. The question is, what happens after this party over? Is there an after party? It's like,
right, there better be.
What's happening tomorrow night? Yeah, where's the show at? That's the question I should be asking.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Party after party.
Yeah.
That's all it is a rotational loop. Going to the party, Alice. Then you go to the after party.
My hope is that we're all hanging out and talking about the same shit after we die, and we've like retained our egos and just exist in another life. That's my hope.
Yeah, me too. I mean, it seems like that's what it would be.
I hope so.
Yeah, like I said, it's hard for me to imagine ceasing to exist.
Yeah. This level 2.
Yeah, right.
That's that. So following the theory I've presented to you about the oneness unity concept, that makes me wonder though, like, okay, AI is getting ridiculous. It's already there. It's already past ridiculous. And they're going to start putting it in people's brains, right? So what's going to happen, my theory, is that we're all the people that get this Neuralink at a certain point, and it might take time for it to get to this point.
I'm wondering about this Neuralink stuff.
They're talking about putting tiny wires in your brain to speed up synapses.
Right.
So anyway, they basically what I'm thinking is, once we're thinking that quickly, the next time you and I have a conversation, we'll be communicating so quick. Well, obviously we won't be communicating with language like English. We'll be on some binary shit, but like just direct telepathy. But
all we got to do is Bluetooth each other's faces.
Yeah.
And we have our like a year worth of a conversation in like 13 seconds.
Yeah.
Gotta like really trim down the human interaction,
Well, I think very quickly what will happen is we'll communicate to the point where there's literally nothing else to talk about. Like, we agree about everything because we've worked out all of our issues. Like, we've worked out all disagreements we've had. And that might take time, but it's like everyone is hyper intelligent because they're thinking super quickly. And now they're all communicating with each other. So my theory is everyone, like, literally, like, ego would break down. It's like differences in personality would break down. So you literally have a hive mind. So everyone is this giant collective thing, and they wouldn't really communicate except to like an ant communicates to the rest of the hive. So because they all share the same thought, they've already reached that level of enlightenment, I guess. So
what do you think would start happening to us physically? Do you think we'd start to get more frail and have even less hair from not going outside?
I don't know, but let me continue this. Don't take me down that rabbit hole. let me get. I'm trying to take you down this one. Hold on a second. So, so, hive mind, okay? And basically, when you reach that level of enlightenment, it would be like God, and he's miserable because everyone's the fucking same. Everyone shares the same thoughts. So what would happen once we reach that hive mind is we would be fucking miserable, and we upload our minds to the matrix so we can forget that we reached that level of enlightenment. So that makes me wonder how many iterations deep into this matrix we are also.
Well, that's what I'm saying. At that point, we physically become more frail and like with huge eyes and little mouths because we don't speak and we only view screens, and our fingertips start getting long, and we kind of start looking like what we think aliens are.
Those things look synthetic, man. Like they don't have genitals or anything.
Or we float in gelatin, as entities.
Yeah, I think humans are far too complex for that to happen. It's I don't know much about the Neuralink, but I don't know I mean, it's hard to tell, if part of that is something that would speed up our thought process and really tap into more of the potential of our brains. I still don't know if that would necessarily create a hive mind. Yeah, I don't know. Now I do know that like the idea of trying to upload your brain, your memories, to be able to continue living has been around for a while now. A guy named, are you guys familiar with Ray Kurzweil?
Kurzweil.
So Kurzweil, like the piano, the keyboard?
Yeah.
That was him. He was an inventor.
Yeah.
He invented,
right.
He was the first one that really pioneered getting an acoustic piano sound digitally.
Right.
But then he also invented a bunch of other stuff too. And the thing that was fascinating about him, I think he's still around, honestly, I don't know, is he would invent for the future. Meaning he would have an idea for an invention and know, I have this idea, but it's going to take 5 years for this to happen and another 10 for this to happen. And so I can finally make this in 20 years, but I've already thought of it. I know it can exist, but all these other things need to happen first. Really fascinating how his mind worked. And one of his big pushes in life was the singularity, just being able to upload everything in your mind into another computer. And then in essence, your body could die and you would keep living. And it almost, I mean, it duplicates you, it almost clones you in a way, but clones you digitally.
That's really the essence of what William Gibson's Neuromancer is about.
Okay.
In the Sprawl trilogy. That's what that really touches on, even though it dances you through a lot of cool stuff and brings you around. What it's really talking about, the reason it's called Neuromancer, like a necromancer, is that it's what they have is these processes that are basically all the memories of somebody. It's a construct, as they call it, or uploaded, like every bit of memory that somebody has. And then the AI is tasked basically with understanding this individual, how it understands humanity through itself.
Yeah.
And therefore it exists inside only on the net. It only exists in a computer. And he meets one. And the whole question is this really an entity? Or is this just a really good recreation? Or is there a difference in that? Is what we are really just one hell of a computer system, which we design computer systems to simulate everything. And we're designing it to simulate our own brain because our brain couldn't put as many numbers into it at one time as a computer could. So it's a really
Yeah.
interesting concept as to what point is what. And then when you jump into quantum physics about observation and the change, then that kind of really does a whole nother monkey wrench and everything.
Yeah, and I don't think, again, I think humans are far too complex. Um, you look at movies like The Matrix or Terminator, go back where we created AI, and essentially their job was to have a perfect scenario, but humans are just naturally imperfect, and so that's why it destroyed us, because we were a virus. We were imperfect and didn't line up with what they were taught we were supposed to be.
As much as we want pleasure for survival, because we're related to that,
Mm-hmm.
for some reason, when we get domesticated, we yearn for the pain of the wild. And a perfectly
Yeah,
built AI can't conceive that. We
yeah.
yearn for risk and we yearn to taste adrenaline.
I think
Yeah.
that's an essence. That's an element of survival is fighting.
Yep.
And like I've thought about that a lot in the last few years. Of there hasn't been a major situation for humanity to be concerned over, like a world war or whatever. I mean, a perfect example is 2020. We're sitting in the middle of this pandemic, and then CIA releases like UFO and alien shit, and everybody's like, okay, like we didn't care, But it's like we've made up so many things to fight for and to fight against, because there hasn't been anything naturally coming in to fight for. And fighting it's a human characteristic, because fighting is surviving. And when there's nothing to fight for, when everything is so good that you have to start essentially making up things to fight for.
Well, we understand that, human instinct is very easily manipulated.
Yeah.
Just seeing violence triggers adrenaline. Just seeing actual violence, and you can tell the difference.
Yeah.
Really good movies that do really good visual effects will trigger that. But if you watch actual video footage of real violence, you feel it.
Yeah.
It's an instinctive thing. And that's because when you're on the tundra, if something else starts getting beat to death, it's your instinct to either go save it or run so you don't get beat to death.
Right.
I don't even like looking at injuries. Like,
yeah, it's, but it goes back to some humans have a kind of a dig on that. They kind of dig that. So,
well, yeah, I mean, and therein lies the complexity of humans, of
right.
what how we react to the stimulus of pain or pleasure or excitement, and what that does for us and what we yearn for. Like I really don't like horror movies, and other people, they live on them. And Alex, you don't like to see injuries. I mean, I don't particularly either. I can never be a doctor. Like,
yeah, that's
but,
my quirky unique trait is I don't like seeing injuries.
Oh, dude,
Like,
I'll start to get sick. It's no good.
yeah.
And then I think there are certain things that we can never necessarily teach AI, or maybe it's just far too much data, far too much information. As someone who loves guitars, and I've got a bunch. My last count was 17. I keep buying them. And I also really like cars. I really like classic cars. And there's something that's like, when I see a really well restored 57 Bel Air or something, like, it's not that I like it. It's like there's something deep inside of me that feels really good when I see that car.
It's craftsmanship, human ingenuity.
Yeah, I mean, times that like I said earlier, like there's not a human alive that could see a sunset and not think it's a beautiful thing, and I think where the variable does come in is what we create. Like I used to spend a lot of time in New York, and you're standing in certain parts of Manhattan when like as far as your eyes can see, it's just buildings. Like even over the horizon it's still buildings. Like to me, there's a majestic nature to that. Like we created this. It's pretty wild. Um, yeah, and a lot of that just is ingrained in what it is to be a human and find uh, pleasure and desire in various things.
Yeah. Yeah. Like if we are all the same person, we find different ways to amuse ourselves. Like different things mean different things to different people.
Yeah.
Yep. I was raised like like strictly religious, and I didn't that like when I turned 18 that left a bad taste in my mouth, and like I was like upset with Christianity, but like as I'm older, like I have a different kind of appreciation for scripture, like
Mm-hmm.
like a deep like and I think people appreciate different things at different times in their lives. Like the interests I had when I was younger are not the same ones I have now, and they probably won't be 10 years from now.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, it is getting about that time. John, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Absolutely. Had a good time.
Yeah.
Um, before we go, is there anything you got coming up that Alice needs to know about?
Yes. Let me look at my calendar here. I don't know when this is airing, but on the 27th of February, Beyond Here will be playing um, uh, at Tin Roof downtown at Bus Call. But after that, May 16th is a big show. We're booked at Exit N. We've got some great local bands, incredible artists with us. So May 16th is going to be a really great night. Anybody who's listening to this should be there with 10 friends.
Fuck yeah. May 16th at Exit In. That's going to be a great show for sure.
Yeah.
Be there, Alice.
Yeah.
We know you will be.
Don't be late for the very important date.
That's right.
Yeah. All right. See you, gentlemen. Have a good night.
All right. You too.
I know.